Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pelham School District Today. Today, we have with us some special guests. We have Tom Adamakis, the principal of Pelham Elementary School. We have a first grade teacher, Kelly Labonte, and a kindergarten teacher, Jen Pendergast, with us. And we are going to talk a little bit about growth mindset. So, Mr. Adamakis, why don't you tell us a little bit about why are we talking about this in Pelham Elementary School?
Well, it's pretty exciting. And when Jennifer and Kelly brought I'd never heard of growth mindset till the end of last school year. And a lot of the strategies that they're going to share and they're going to talk about, it makes sense. We're seeing students with a lot of challenges coming into the building, behaviorally, academically. And some of the ideals and strategies within, Jennifer began trying them in her classroom. And I was really excited. That's why I asked these two ladies to join us, because they're in the midst of implementing growth mindset in their own classrooms, conducting a book read throughout and I believe there's 19 people that are participating to try to spread the strategies within to help them in their own classrooms. So it was a good opportunity when you asked, well, what are we going to talk about in April? So I approached Jennifer and Kelly to come share what they're doing in their classrooms, and we also want to see it spread throughout the building.
So how did you hear about growth mindset?
So really with social media, just following other teachers on Twitter, I kept seeing this growth mindset hashtag, and so I kind of looked into it more, and then I found this great book, A Mindset for Learning, and I follow Christine Mraz and Christine Hertz, and the reason why, and I'm sure Jen feels the same way, why I loved that, I mean, there are lots of books about growth mindset. I mean, Carol Dweck is the guru of growth mindset, but why I liked this book is because they're teachers, they're in a classroom, and they made it so practical. It's like a how-to. You know, sometimes we have these great ideas and we learn new things, but then we get in our classroom with our kids and we're like, how would I do this in first grade? And it gives us all the tools that we needed to start to implement pretty much right away this school year. So, yeah.
I was excited too, because I've done 3 book reads, and when I heard that they wanted to present a book read to the staff, so I'm actually in the audience with Jen and Kelly, learning about it myself, because I also wanted to learn a little bit more about this subject. So
Excellent. So what does it mean to have a growth mindset?
So what we've learned that having a growth mindset means is that you can constantly change and grow, that everybody is capable of learning more. Their brains can grow stronger. That's how we explain it in the younger grades. So your skills, your personality, your traits are ever evolving and progressing. Versus the flip side of that, a fixed mindset, which is the sort of, I think, mentality that in some areas I know I grew up with, especially in school, when we think of kids that say, like, I'm not good at math, or I just can't do that, or, you know, I'm not good at baseball, I can't play that sport. But that's a fixed mindset, and that you just think that you're born with your talents or your skills, and that's the way it is. Where a growth mindset is saying, no, we can get better. We might not be Michael Jordan, but we can improve our skills and get better.
And I've been using that. My own son, he's in 8th grade taking algebra, and Jen shared that example, and I've been using it. My son says, I'm not good at math. And the strategy is, no, you're not good at math yet. And these are the things we can do to hopefully get better and to keep working at it.
Right.
So to try to break that fixed mindset.
So what is the value then of teaching that in school?
I think there's a lot of value. I think it really empowers children to know that Christine and Christine say, they're their own agents of change. So they have the power to, as long as they keep practicing and they believe in themselves, that they can become better at anything that they want to. And I also think too, just the idea that they are going, you know, they can evolve, I guess. And that they're not fixed, like Jen said. I'm not good at math right now, but it doesn't mean I have to give up and I'm never going to be good at it.
And really the reality in school, whether it's pre-K to high school through college and life, is that you are always going to have challenges. And in school, those challenges are definitely in the academic realm, but not just. They can be social challenges. So there's challenges across the board. And so growth mindset, for what it's done for us in the classroom, is it's really given us language so that children can identify the stances that go with somebody that has a growth mindset. So they can really start to look at situations and think about kind of what it is that we want to progress with. So do you want? Can I tell you about the stances?
Absolutely. I would love to hear them.
These come directly from the book that we've so fallen in love with. So there's flexibility. So we're teaching children what flexibility is. So and we have little visuals for flexibility. So when we introduce these to children in the classroom, in the kindergarten, first grade, but even through our book club, even up to the older grades, we are doing this through children's stories. And so while there's books that are suggested titles in a mindset for learning, now that we've opened our mind to growth mindset, every video that we watch, every commercials on TV, and definitely children's books, we're thinking about how can we fit this into what we're talking about. So we are using a lot of books to start reading to children. Instead of directly teaching growth mindset, we're finding that children do a really good job seeing it in characters first before they can evolve to see that they might have to use a stance. So our stances that we've taught are flexibility, flexibility and optimism. Has little visuals so that our younger friends know exactly what those pictures mean. Persistence, never giving up, even when it's hard, which is a tough one. Resilience, there's always going to be something that gets in your way, or often is going to be something that gets in your way, but it's how you handle that and how you bounce back from it. And then a really important one in general is empathy. We need to be raising human beings that have empathy and then act on that empathy for other people.
So what does that look like in the classroom?
So I started, I don't know, we may have done it a little bit differently. I started with the visuals, and I had kind of the basic visual made, and then I would read a story that introduced that stance really well. A lot of these stories introduce more than one stance, but we kind of picked and chose the ones we thought were most appropriate for the kids. And then after, with my first graders, they then helped me add to my posters. So my posters look a little bit different. You know, there's lots of quotes and words that the kids have thought of as we've gone along. And they're evolved. Like at first maybe we had one or two words. Empathy was the hardest one for them to put into words. They knew how to show empathy. They could recognize it, but how do you put that into words? So that was but now the posters are completely filled with all things that they thought of, which is great.
And I know that in our kindergarten classroom, now that children know these words, they're using these words pretty regularly in their conversations. Teachers are using these words. So if we're trying to get onto the computer and maybe something's not working as quickly as we want it to, it's a great opportunity for us to say, so we need to be flexible here, or children will start telling us, Mrs. Pendergast, you need to be flexible. So we have done the similar things. We've taken the characters from all of our stories. Now we have a big poster in our room with all the characters from stories and little post-it notes in the children's words of how did that child show a growth mindset. What we're switching to right now in kindergarten is how the words that we use can help us approach an activity or a challenge. So beyond just the stances, but thinking those sort of self-talk that's a positive self-talk can help you through a situation.
And I feel like they really help. Sometimes, like Jen had said before, sometimes it's hard to see it in themselves, but they're really good about, and in a positive, appropriate way, they're really good about noticing it in their friends, in their peers. So for those kids that it's hard about, or maybe they're a little bit more reserved with, it's so nice when their friend says, you were really persistent. That was really hard for you. You did a nice job. And so I love that part of it too, because it's a lot of positive language that's happening in the classroom, even when there's, things that are tricky for them.
And I also see a lot of children coming to me with stories outside of school. So the goal in the classroom is that we bring it back to learning, because this is ultimately what we're here for. But for them to say, I went to T-ball last night and I really didn't want to go because I didn't know how to play, that's a great opportunity for them to just work with, you have to be persistent, or you have to be a little flexible. You'll learn how to do it. You just don't know how to do it yet, but you'll learn how to do it. So I think when they start seeing things outside of school, then they can bring it slowly into the classroom, and that's what we're helping them to do.
So how do you think this has had an effect on your students?
Oh, well, I think it's been profound in my classroom.
Definitely positive. And I think for me too, it's I know that they're watching everything I do and everything I say. Even with my little ones at home, this has helped me. So they're watching me. I have to say what I mean and mean what I say. And I think it's even helped me that I just feel like the energy is more positive, even when we have rough days, because we have rough days, but we could always kind of reflect on it at the end and look at what was positive and what did we do when we did have a tricky situation. I just love that they're using this language, and I have a common language with them. It just seems as though they feel like they're being heard, and they have the words to explain how they're feeling or explain what they're noticing. Whereas before, it was hard for some of them sometimes to say how they were feeling. They didn't have the words, I guess. So
it is about language. And so much of this is also about, we've taught our young children about their brains. So they know a lot of information about what the role of their brain is. Something that I don't think certainly I understood growing up in school. So we start our kindergarten day with sort of a challenge every day, so thinking about everybody's brain can grow stronger. How is yours going to grow stronger today? But at the same time, when somebody has been called on and it's taking them a few minutes to answer a question, children are learning the value that their brain is working to get there, and we're going to be flexible and give them time. So it's really, I think, in our young children, given them, again, it's the language, but just they've been forced to kind of look outside of themselves and see that we're all in this together. Everybody might be in a different place, but we're all going to move forward, which is pretty awesome.
So what's your future vision or plan for this?
Ta-da! We have lots of plans. We have lots, right? Well, right now we're really excited because we're in the middle of this book read. We have lots of teachers joining. It's exciting.
Yeah, you said there's 19 people in there. Yeah,
I think every grade level is represented as well.
It's exciting. Yesterday morning we had a great book read where we did a little make and take, and everybody left with their stance cards ready to move back into the classroom and slowly introduce it with children's books and clips and things that they could start to use right away. I think we know that on the 5th grade team, they're doing some pretty exciting things with leadership, and we think there's a real natural segue between what we're doing and what kids will be doing. I recently was at something where somebody had challenged the audience and said they didn't really think that this was appropriate for young children, and I had to stand up and say it's so appropriate. If we can start children at younger grades understanding the value of why you're in school, that we see potential and we want you to see potential in every moment of your day, I think that we can make a really strong change in our school system, a really positive change. So hopefully getting more people on board and
definitely do some more book reads. I would love to also reach out to parents in the community and tell them this is what's happening, so that at home they have that same common language and the parents understand it. And like I said, as a parent, this was really helpful for me, not just as a teacher. So, I would love to be able to get that information out to parents in the community.
It is
excellent.
It's pretty great. When at parent conference this year, I heard a few parents say to me, "Oh, I've heard the words at home. They told me I need to be."
Well, you did
flexible."
little videos, right?
Yes.
You did little dojo videos or something.
We used a lot of. There's some great resources online that have also helped that we've linked off for parents to see too. Class Dojo is a great resource for parents. Big ideas.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming and sharing a little bit about this with us. And then we actually have a clip of the students themselves talking about growth mindset, which of course is ultimately how you find out what it really means and how it's impacting them. So I'm sure you will enjoy that clip. So thank you for joining us for another edition of Pelham School District Today, and enjoy watching the kids.
It's kind of exciting, right?
Yeah.
So I know that the boys and girls in your classroom and in my classroom have been talking a lot this year about your brains and how your brains can change and grow, and about something called growth mindset. So Mrs. Labonte and I are going to be teaching some adults about that, some grown-ups about it, and we were thinking that maybe our kindergarten and first grade friends could help teach. Are you willing to help us?
Yes.
Okay, so I brought a very tiny thing here today. It's a very tiny thing.
It's a brain.
It's a brain. It's a teeny tiny brain. It was like the brains you were squeezing during your testing. You're right. What do you know about your brain? What have you learned about your brain?
That you have all different parts and there's neurons too.
There's different parts of your brain and there's neurons. Anything else you learned about your brain this year? What have you learned?
The neurons connect.
The neurons connect. What do you know about your brain?
That if you try harder, if you keep just giving up, your brain will be on the couch and just eating pizza.
Oh my goodness. So we learned a little bit. We used some videos, didn't we, about Mojo?
Yes.
Right. And Mojo showed us a little bit about using a lazy, kind of what we sometimes call a lazy brain, or sometimes using a brain that grows stronger. So what do we know then about your brain? Brains can do what?
Learn.
Brains can learn.
They can get bigger.
They can. So when you say your brain can get bigger, does that mean that one day in kindergarten, all of a sudden your brain is just going to come out your ears?
Your brain grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and then when you get older, it will learn more.
Okay. Do I have a brain that's pouring out my ears?
No!
But inside my brain, all those neurons that have connected, instead of just being kind of little teeny wimpy connections, they're really big and strong connections. So that's how our brain grows. So we've talked a lot in school this year about how our brain grows. So I have some pictures, and I imagine that you are familiar with these. So tell me a little bit about this picture.
Optimism.
Optimism.
Optimism is when you try and you keep on trying, and then it works.
So when you have an optimistic attitude, when it's something brand new, you say to yourself, I will give it my
Best shot.
best shot, because doing hard, challenging things helps your
Brain.
helps it grow. I love that. All right, how about this one?
Never give up.
Never give up.
Persistent.
Persistence. Persistence means do not.
Give up.
What happens
not
if it's
stop.
really hard?
You keep trying.
Okay, well, what happens if the way that I'm trying is not working?
You try again.
Oh my goodness, I hear your enthusiasm. What's that word we have for just try a different way? Do you remember that word? Resilience and flexibility. Those are two other words we've learned this year. Flexibility. You were telling me on our walk over from the kindergarten that sometimes at home you need to be flexible. Why is that? And you were agreeing with her.
Because my TV freezes up in the middle of shows, so I just watch the shows on my iPad.
So the way you wanted to watch TV doesn't work, so you need to try a different way. Okay. How does that make you feel when the first way doesn't work?
A little.
A little bit mad? A little bit mad? Do you flip your lid when you're mad, or
No.
are you flexible?
Flexible.
Flexible. Interesting. And then you used a really big word, resilience. Resilience. Sometimes when we're doing something, something gets in our way. Something gets in our way.
Back.
You just gotta bounce back. You just have to bounce back. And then we learned this word. We talk about this a lot.
Empathy.
What does it mean to have empathy? That one that has to do with this part of us. Someone help him out a little bit. What does it mean?
If someone lost their dog, you would be like, oh, I'm sorry that you lost your dog.
Ooh. So it has something to do with your
Heart.
feelings in your heart. So having empathy means you feel somebody else's feelings in your heart. Have you ever had to have empathy for somebody? Have you ever had empathy for a friend or a grown-up?
When my friend gets hurt, someone took their thing, I feel really bad for them, and I try and look for their thing.
So the interesting part about empathy is that if you have empathy, you can then make a choice about doing something about it, right? You can help them. So we are learning these things in kindergarten and in first grade this year, and we know that these things we do a lot outside of school. But I'm wondering, is there ever a time in school when when something is really hard and you have to keep working at it? Have you ever had to be persistent in first grade?
Yes.
When have you had to be persistent? Is there ever a first grade time? Can you think of it? Go ahead. Tell me a first grade
I
time.
got stuck on a math problem and I just did math in my head and then I just got it.
So you got stuck on a math problem and you did some math in your head and you got it. How'd that feel at the end?
I felt happy.
You felt happier.
Proud of myself.
And proud of yourself. Do you remember when we first learned about Mojo?
Yes.
When Mojo's math problems got too hard, what did Mojo do? But hold on, before Katie did
Mojo
it.
gave up and then Katie came and then Katie came and said, "Don't give up. You can keep on trying."
Because everybody's brains can get stronger. So you proved to yourself that don't give up. Just keep thinking of a new way to do it. Good for you. Have you ever had to use persistence in school?
Yeah, because when we were doing the iReady test, like when I had to do a 3-digit problem and it was like a really high number, it was like 500 and something minus 100 and something. I was like, I can keep trying, and it was probably 489 or something.
That's probably what the answer was. So you proved to yourself that if I'm persistent, I can figure this out. Did you have to be flexible when you did that? Did the first way that you tried it work right away? Oh, it did. Well, good for you. Good for you. That does happen sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What about my kindergarten friends? Have you ever had to use any of these in school?
So when I was trying to make an ice block, and I couldn't do it, then I tried another way, and then it worked.
And then it worked. Good for you. So you were talking about, and we have a center in our room set up like Antarctica, and he was making a block of ice for it. There you go. Do you have an idea of when you've had to use maybe persistence or empathy?
One, I was trying to cut out a shape.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work, so I tried another way, and it worked.
And it worked, so you were flexible.
I feel empathy for him.
Oh, so sometimes in kindergarten or first grade, have you ever noticed that other kids are kind of upset about something? Yeah, that does happen sometimes, and you feel that feeling in your heart, right? So I brought a couple of little characters to school. We have a few more minutes. We've started talking a little bit about how the words that you use can help your mindset. We've talked about growth mindset. So these are not really the characters from a story, but I pulled out these little characters because they were reminding me of a story about the 3 little pigs.
The 3 little pigs.
You know that? You read that story.
The
Wonderful.
3 little pig and the big bad wolf.
Okay,
goes
so
out of their
This
house
is
to
going to
try.
be in our story our big bad wolf, okay? So let's imagine that the story went like this, that the 3 pigs built their houses and they were inside their house and along came the wolf and he said, little, what does the wolf say?
Little pig, let me in.
And the pigs say, no, we're terrified of you. We're going to hide in here for the rest of our lives. The end. Imagine if that's how the story went.
No, it's a quick story.
That is a quick story.
That was
Do you think that was like a Mojo or like a Katie?
Mojo.
Mojo, because in our story that we learned about Mojo, Mo just packed it up and said, I quit, I'm not doing this anymore. Or imagine if the pig said this, okay, you can come in and eat us. So how do you think the pigs could act to be persistent and to be flexible? I don't know. Do you think they'll have empathy for the wolf who wants to eat them?
No.
Will they have empathy for one another?
Yes.
Perhaps.
If
They
one pig's
definitely-
house blows down,
If someone's house got blown down, that's true. They definitely have to be resilient in this story because this is their problem that's in their way. So they're going to have to bounce back, right? And they probably are going to have to be
optimism.
Yeah, they'll have to use optimism or be optimistic.
They're
You're
gonna
right.
be like Little Red Riding Hood.
We read that story about Little Red Riding Hood, right? And when Granny said to Little Red Riding Hood, "Stay home, there's a wolf in the forest,"
No.
did she say, "Okay"?
No.
And
No.
quit?
No.
No.
I'm gonna try something.
I'm gonna try something.
And she tried a catapult and it worked.
In our story that we read, she tried to build a catapult and it sent the cookies through the air right to Granny's house. Pretty
it
cool.
worked.
So, what kinds of things do you think the pig should say instead of just saying, "I quit, yes, you can come in, you can eat us"?
No. Go to another door and then go out the back door and then they could sneak around there and then they can get past the fox.
Maybe they can come up with a new escape plan. I like that. Any other things? What do you think they should say?
Maybe they could say no and then our story the pig said no and then the wolf just tried to like blow their house down and when it got to the brick one he couldn't blow it down and then at the end of our story the last pig cooked up the wolf and ate it.
Oh my goodness. So your story had a very interesting ending, didn't it?
But I don't think that happened in a little pig, so I can believe it.
You don't think it happened in the movie. So this is what I know. Stories can have different endings, right? And the story, just like your story can have everything that happens to you can have a different ending. So just like when you were doing your math problem and it was kind of hard for you and frustrating, it could have ended like this. "I quit, I'm not doing it anymore."
No.
It could have, but you changed your ending, didn't you? You used a positive growth mindset and you changed your ending. When that problem was kind of tricky for you on I Ready, could have had a different ending. Your story could have ended with, "I'm all done my test, I need to go." But it didn't, did it? When your TV wasn't working that day, your story could have had a different ending. But did you change your ending using flexibility? Well, I think this is kind of the end of our little conversation. It was great talking to you. Is there anything else you want me to know about your brains, or what else do you want me to know?
I forget.
You forget. That happens too sometimes. Sometimes our brains get a little just tired. Yes.
That your brains can remember.
And your brains can remember things, which you showed me today. So good job. It was nice chatting with you. Can I talk again to you another time?